Welcome to another episode of Petty and Profound. My name is Caitlin, and I have my co host and brother Morgan with me here. And today we are going to discuss what movie, Morgan?
The Truman Show.
Yes, this is Morgan's first pick, obviously at a different level of caliber than my first three movie picks. But I think B movies have a special place in all of our hearts. But today we're going to talk about creme de la creme here, Truman Show. So Morgan, I have a description or like a paragraph.
Yeah, I've been waiting
summary.
for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
bring
Okay.
it.
The Truman Show is a satirical drama that follows Truman Burbank, an ordinary man who gradually discovers that his entire life has been broadcast as a reality television show. Unbeknownst to him, Truman has been raised since birth in a giant enclosed set, complete with actors posing as family, friends, and neighbors, while millions around the world watch his every move. As Truman begins to notice strange inconsistencies in his environment, he becomes increasingly suspicious and determined to uncover the truth. The film explores themes of free will, authenticity, surveillance, and the power of media, ultimately portraying one man's quest to break free from a manufactured reality and take control of his own destiny.
I think it's good. You nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did more homework on this one. So production budget was $60 million. And do you know what it grossed? Do you have any ideas? I'm sure you have some.
I'm gonna guess 100.
Domestic US 125 million.
Solid.
Yeah, and then worldwide 264.
That's a smash hit.
Yes, it was earning 4x its budget.
Yeah.
When I was reading trivia, apparently like studio execs felt like 60 million was too much for an art movie.
Mmm.
But I guess, yeah, it panned out well for them. So it was a good investment. So before we dig in, what made you want to do this movie, Morgan?
You know, it's funny because I wouldn't have picked it, even though I did pick it.
Didn't take
But my
it.
kids picked it. Because
Huh?
I asked them, I was like, "What are some of your favorite movies, and what are what are your friends' favorite movies, but from my generation?"
Ah.
So, and they don't actually pick the ones I would pick. So they
Mm-hmm.
kind of gave me a list. I'm like, oh, I would never have picked those, but those are kind
Mm-hmm.
of interesting. So, like, that's why I picked it.
Did you ask for them to explain what made them choose Truman Show?
Yeah. And it's funny because neither of them have seen it, but their friends talk about it and they know the concept. So I was like, oh, this will be kind of a good
Very
excuse
interesting.
to kind of rewatch it, and then maybe they'll watch it and we could talk about it more. So like basically this is just a dry run for future family conversation. I was like, boom, two birds, one stone. It'll be fun.
But they still haven't watched it? You didn't watch it together?
No, no, so it's they since it's they're currently out of school, they're binge watching other stuff that's higher on their list.
Mm.
Uh so
So I'm curious why middle school children in the year of our 2025 year of our Lord, why are they talking about Truman Show?
yeah, I think it's just because they think of it, perhaps accurately, as sort of the start of reality TV. So, like, that's how it's sort of pitched to them, and they find that interesting. So, it's like, reality TV and a lot of sort of like the live streaming content we have today, they're very used to, and like they, at least in part, think sort of like the genesis of that is at least partly, or at least one of the sort of founding sort of films or sort of pieces of art that kind of helped push that forward and move that idea forward was the Truman Show. That's what I think, and that's what
Mhm.
I suspect, but I'll confirm it.
Sure, sure. I was talking to Troy about this beforehand, and I said, much of this movie was very prescient. like you said, in terms of reality TV. I think the only real show that preceded this movie that was really truly reality TV was The Real World,
Yeah.
which I think it debuted in like 92, 93.
Yeah.
And so that changed everything and got the ball rolling. But then I think the second big tipping point for reality TV was Survivor,
Sure.
right around year 2000, 2001. I think everything changed after Survivor because it was just such a big hit. And that was still when everyone had cable and everyone still watched the same things. And yeah, I remember going to Spanish class at that time when it was first released or Survivor first came out. And literally, like the first 10 minutes of Spanish class, all the kids would talk about is Survivor. So, but I think that kind of tipped it into being ubiquitous. After
Sure.
Survivor, there were so many reality shows. I think the closest reality show right now, just off the top of my head, that I could think of after the release of the Truman Show, it was in the early aughts. I'm sure you've heard of it. It was called the Joe Schmo Show.
I don't think I have heard of it.
Really? I never watched it, but the whole premise of Joe Schmo was it was a fake competition show. Everyone was in on it except for this guy named, I think his name was Joe. And he actually turned out to be a really good person. So a lot of the contestants felt a little guilty about it, but it was all just to see how he would react to like crazy circumstances or relationships. But yeah, Joe Schmo, I had to be like 2003, 2004. So I think I've had a lot of friends that watched it. They said it was good, but I never watched it. So, what would you like to talk about first in terms of this movie?
I have different categories of thoughts.
Oh well, let's dig in.
So I'm going to give you the different categories,
Okay.
and then we can talk about whichever category. So my first category are sort of funny observations and
Okay.
or Easter eggs.
Ooh, yes.
So that's the first category. Uh, Second category is sort of pet peeves.
Ooh, okay.
Um, Next one is sort of let's say philosophical.
Oh, I have a philosophical themes section.
Yeah, okay,
So,
okay.
but let's start with
I
your first category.
Well, you haven't even heard all the categories yet.
Oh, pardon me. Keep going.
Uh, you know, Unresolved questions.
Oh, yes.
Um, Anachronisms.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and where do we go from here? So,
Ooh, that was on
okay,
that button.
yeah.
Or no, it was how does it all
How
end?
does it all end? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So where do you want to start now that you have the full list of options?
Start at the top and work our way down.
All right. So, I did like you, I did a little bit of research. And one of the things I like about this movie is there's a lot of hidden things. Like there's a lot of things that you're like, oh, like what are the hidden Easter eggs? Where they kind of have stuff in the background or kind of clues or tips or things like that. One of the Easter eggs I found, and some of them I agree with and some of them I don't necessarily agree with. But one of them was in one of the scenes where he's when Truman is at his mother's apartment.
Ooh.
There's supposed to be like a parrot or a parakeet or something,
Oh, I didn't see
but it's
that.
fake. It's obviously like a stuffed bird, but like, and the reason it was called sort of. I looked all these up before rewatching it for the second time. They're like, well, like this particular scene, this particular scenery, like the mom's apartment, he doesn't actually go there that often. So they're like, they spend
You
so
can't
little.
take care of a bird.
Yeah, it's so low budget. They have a fake bird in there. And when I was watching the scene, I'm like, that looks too fake. I don't think that's. I think it's more ornamental, like it's part
Yeah.
of like a lamp or something. Like I like it, but I think that's another Easter egg. And this was one that I found on the internet was in one of the scenes where he's eating breakfast, he's taking, I want to say like vitamin B12 supplements or
He
something like
doesn't get
that.
sun.
Because
Doesn't
there's
get
no
sun.
sun, because it's all includes, and like I never caught that in
Me
like the
neither.
first one,
Mm-hmm.
and I like that. Another one, and this is actually an Easter egg at the very beginning of the story, when he's on his way to work and a light crashes down from the sky. You know, I always knew that was an Easter egg because it's a hint. That like he's in a where did that light come from? But I
Mm-hmm.
didn't notice that on the side of the light it says Sirius. Like it actually corresponds to a fake
Sure.
star in the fake
Mm-hmm.
sky that he lives in. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was interesting. So like if he had really looked at it, it would have been an even bigger clue. Uh, Another one I like, and this is maybe just a funny observation. I like it when they're going through. I like it when they're going through the family album, and there's like the tiny photoshopped fake Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore,
Like it's
he's
like
like,
a
he looks so
tiny.
small.
It's like, hey, why is it so? And they're like, oh, things are always smaller in person. Eiffel Tower, Statue of Liberty. Yeah, and it's just like it's so obviously fake, but
Mhm.
I just love it.
Yeah.
So I think, the last one, I don't know if this counts as an Easter egg, but it was interesting again in my research that throughout the filming of the movie, Jim Carrey and Ed Harris never met.
It's
So,
true.
so they like sort of like method acting. Yeah, like they were locked in their roles of being in separate environments and not
Mhm.
interacting. So I
Mhm.
thought that was interesting. I thought that was sort of a good find.
One Easter egg that I noticed, and I looked up trivia too, but I actually noticed it when watching the movie, and I didn't notice or catch it when I watched it originally in 1998, was the boat he takes at the end. What's the name of the boat?
The Santa Maria.
Yes, which Columbus took to a new world.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I saw something like the numbers on the sale. I think it was 183, but that has like a biblical. It's a biblical passage that aligns to what's going on in his life at that moment too. So going on a journey, yeah.
There was
So
another there was another one I found in my internet research, which was in the town square. There's like an arch, and above it has written in Latin, "All for one, one for all," which is symbolism of everyone's there for him, but he's the one that's sort of entertaining the whole world. I thought that was interesting as an Easter egg.
I read that it was filmed in a city called Seaside, Florida.
Yep.
And the founders of that community were in the movie. They were in the square at one point talking to each other. So I thought
I
that was really,
I like that one. I didn't find that one. I like that
yeah.
Easter egg.
Another one is the writer named all of the main, well, first of all the streets are named after famous Hollywood stars from
I
like the
did read
20s
that one.
to the
Yeah.
40s. And like a lot of the main characters are named after Hollywood stars. So the love interest Sylvia, well, that's her real life name. On her notebook, she's named Lauren Garland from
Yeah.
Lauren Bacall and Judy Garland.
Garland. Yeah.
So again, little winks to things that I guess Truman wouldn't know about.
I like it because like each time you watch it, you're kind of like, what else might there be? Can I maybe
Mhm.
find a new Easter egg? If I watch it one more
Mhm.
time. Like I think that's kind of fun.
I also read that a lot of the characters, the actors, were given extensive like backstories. Like what's my motivation? What
Sure.
am I
Yeah.
coming in from? And so I think the director gave Ed Harris like a 50-page backstory, like of what the Truman Show was. It won all these awards, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera.
I like
But I
that.
thought that was very, very method, very intense.
Sure.
And I also read that Laura Linney, who plays Merle, who is Truman's wife, she studied Sears catalogs to see
Okay.
like how the women like dress
Presented.
themselves and
Yeah.
how she's showing the coffee or what is it, hot chocolate
Hot
maybe.
cocoa
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the
So
Alps or from the slopes of somewhere.
yeah, but she hit it like to the
Oh,
T.
for
She did it
sure.
really well. Yeah.
Well,
So what do you want to talk about next?
well, if we're going through my list, and you
Hmm.
feel free to jump in with any of your categories.
Okay.
I don't want to dominate the conversation.
Well, this is
Uh,
your pick, so I'm letting you lead.
so next one are pet peeves. I have,
Okay.
and there's other things that are pet peeves, but these are kind of like minor ticky tack things.
Hmm.
In watching it, it frustrates me to no end that they have starting positions. Like that
Oh.
everyone starts the day like in the same, position, whether it's, getting the mail or, like I think that's so weird. I mean, in real life, no one has, even if you have the same routine, it's always just a little bit different. So having everything
Mhm.
follow that. And relatedly, when he's sort of starting to unravel, the story of his life or what's going on, again, it's loops. He's like, hey, the the woman on the bicycle, the man carrying flowers, the Volkswagen bug, he's like, they're on an endless loop. And it's
Mhm.
just, to me, it's just,
A little
for,
lazy. A little
yeah,
lazy.
for something with such a high production value, and for
Mhm.
something that's so meticulously planned, it's just
Mhm.
an obvious flaw. Like,
Mhm.
and I really,
Copy.
I'm like, even if you just change it to, hey, this is like the Monday, Wednesday, Friday loop, or you got to change it a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Um, the next one I have is Phyllis. Yeah, and I think you're gonna have a lot of thoughts on this one. Sort of philosophical. Well, the first one is, categorizing it. How do you categorize this as a film?
Mhm.
I think one of the reasons I find it interesting is just, is it a romantic comedy? Is it a dystopian book? Is it a thriller? Is it drama? Is it, is it like social justice? Is it, like there's a lot of elements. There's a lot of things going, and it's not just one thing. And I
Mhm.
think I like that. I think I like it that there's actually a few different dimensions, and you can
Mhm.
you can certainly watch it as sort of a dystopian film. You can certainly
Mhm.
watch it as a rom com. You can watch it as sort of almost like a coming of age or breaking free or triumphant, hero story. Like you can actually
Mhm.
watch it from several different perspectives, and I find that satisfying. Um, and going back to what we said at the beginning, in terms of this was the start of reality TV, and you were talking about that other show, the one with Joe. Um,
Joe
one of the
Schmo.
things one of the things I think makes this different is, and this concept of reality TV is so different, is he's not in on it. Truman's
Yeah.
not in on it, and it's for such a long duration.
Mhm.
It's from birth to he's well into adulthood,
Mhm.
and I think it's that makes it unique. Like as sort of like a piece of film art, but also compared to any of the reality TV we watched, then all the way through, like there's nothing that had that sort of duration, that sort of deceit, that sort of manipulation.
Mhm.
It's heavy. I mean, and it's right there. It's sort of the elephant in the room the whole
Mhm.
time. There's another Easter egg I found, but I moved this to the philosophy section, which is that there's a picture of him dressed as a clown, that his
Oh, and
mother
he's in
finds,
cage. He's in
and
a prison.
he's in a cage or a prison.
How
She's like,
symbolic.
oh, my little clown, and it symbolizes him being a clown for the whole world, in a
Mhm.
cage, and it's like that's rough. That's really rough, and particularly his own mother is being like that's who you are. You're the clown in the cage. Like, and I think, maybe. I, I think that's something that could be grappled with, and I almost like it better that it's not. I like it that it's an elephant in the room and we feel a resolution. We feel like at least the elephant's been let out of the room, at the end of the story, but like they don't really address it, another way. It's just it really sits there, and I think it's actually clever that they don't. I want some of your thoughts. You're kind of being quiet.
I like your thoughts. The Yeah, I mean, there's the word that kept coming to mind the entire time I was watching the movie was manipulation.
Yeah.
And it fascinates me how no matter how sophisticated a production can be, whether it be like Joe Schmo or this one, which they said would be like billions of dollars over time, the largest studio ever built, et cetera, you can only plan so much. At the end of the day, he's still a human being. Again, he has free will. And it's fascinating to me how uh, obviously Ed Harris, the director, or the creator. I like they call him creator, which again, like God complex,
Sure.
quite literal. He keeps trying to like force Truman into this predetermined life or idea of what he wants for him. And things go awry anytime Truman tries to execute any sort of form of free will. Actually, I kind of like this girl. We're gonna disappear her. You know, towards in the movie things start going a little screwy, and he starts trying to like he goes into that building next door and looks inside the elevator and
It's like
sees that
sandwiches.
yeah, and so and then he sees his dad, and they basically disappear him off the street, and the bus drives away. So I just kept thinking, everything's so manipulated, and that's like so twisted. I read in the trivia that a lot of college media classes use this movie as a starting point to discuss media ethics and what is ethical and what's unethical in this movie. And they specifically talk about Ed Harris as the director. They talk about the best friend Marlon, and then they talk about the wife Merle, and they actually say that like she prostitutes herself, which is a little unfortunate if you think about it, but in some ways she does. Um, but yeah, you can put all these people in his life, and it only works to a certain extent. And I can't remember where I heard this or what story, but it sits in the back of my head. And it's somebody who had like a turtle in their backyard, and they gave this turtle like this beautiful little turtle terrarium with all these turtle toys. And the turtle wanted nothing to do with it. It just kept trying to escape. It just wanted to crawl over the wall and see what else was out there. And I'm like, that's humanity. That's life. And you can give somebody a wonderful cage, but at the end of the day, like at the end, they don't want the cage. They want, and so Ed Harris, when Truman was thinking about walking outside that door, leaving that world, he made some interesting and compelling arguments. He said, there are lies out there waiting for you.
Sure.
It's no more
The devil
real.
you know is better
Yes.
than the devil you don't.
And it's funny because he's in some ways he's right. Of course, you are going to be lied to in real life. People will be dishonest, right? Like obviously not at the level that Truman explores or encounters in his manufactured life. But why is that? Why would someone want that? And at the end of the day, he wants authenticity. And so I was thinking about how all of Truman's life up until about 30 years old, I think he's like 29 going on 30, manufactured, manipulated. Nothing is really authentic except for perhaps his encounter with Sylvia. And he senses it. He doesn't really know what's going on, but he feels that something's a little, amiss. So those are some of my thoughts.
So your thoughts align perfectly with some of my next thoughts. They literally just sort of inter, mend together and mesh together. Um, Under unresolved questions, I had what are the moral obligations, of his fake family and fake friends and, fake coworkers? Like, what moral obligations do they owe him?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is fascinating because clearly when the way it's presented is they owe him nothing. If anything,
Mm-hmm.
they owe him lies.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think as the story progresses, certainly more and more characters have more discomfort, and also the the audience is rooting for him. So
Mm-hmm.
even if the characters in Trumanville, are lying to him, the rest of the world, does seem to have sort of a better moral footing for him. And then I wanted to hit on something you said is you said sort of his interaction with Sylvia is really authentic, but does Sylvia like Truman
For
on his
him.
own, or does she like him as a cause? Is this like save the turtles or save the Trumans, or because I think and you get a glimpse of this when she calls in to sort of the talk show where she's talking to the creator and she's bad mouthing him, and you see all like her posters and stuff where it's like free Truman or stop this, or and I think that's different. I think that motivation is different, to have someone as a cause versus, a romantic interest. So like I think it blurs the line. I think it blurs it on purpose. But I think that's along with the moral question. It's very much an unresolved question. Um, and then another question I have is why does the dad character crash the set? It's been decades, or at least more than a decade. Why now? And like, they use him as a vehicle to advance the plot to sort of start things, but other than a couple lines here or there, they don't say like, "Hey, what was the issue? What was your plan? Like, did he have any sort of take on it, or did he just want to be back on the show?" It's like it's
Mm-hmm.
a completely unanswered question. So those are my main unanswered questions.
Well, they talk about that in like the meta interview on the TV, like the with the
Yeah,
director. And he actually asked, why was, obviously he was written out of the show, and the reason for that was so Truman would be deathly afraid
the
of water,
water. Yeah,
afraid of travel. And so that was a good, as you said, vehicle to get him to be afraid of it. And the actor, they said the actor was unhappy about being written out of the show.
sure, but it had,
So
but it
he
just
wanted
to,
to come back.
yeah, but just to interject, it had been a long time. Like that. It's sort of like I can
Why not
understand
come
if
back
he,
to
yeah, like why now? Why not a year after it happened? Why not 2 years after it? Like that the timing of it is the part that I don't understand.
True, true. And it's funny, I read, and this seems more like supposition than fact, but I read that, Truman, when they brought the dad back, it was almost a confirmation to him that everything was a setup and it was phony because he didn't really why how would the friend bring the dad back? Oh, I found him, and by the way, I didn't have him in the car, I had
Yeah,
him
yeah.
waiting in the
Hiding in the
mist, the
bushes.
fog.
Yeah, in the
Yeah,
fog,
yeah,
in the
yeah,
fog and the bushes. Yeah,
yeah, it's a
yeah.
little awkward.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had him hiding in the flatbed, and he crawled out a
Hmm.
half a mile ago.
Yeah, and this friend is like always carrying a 6 pack of beer with him, like at
It's
any
like
minute.
it's like American Express. You don't leave home without your 6 pack.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought that was curious. So I have a list of 5 philosophical themes that were explored in the Truman Show, and we've kind of discussed some of these. The first is free will versus determinism. So Truman struggled to choose his own path, and questions whether we control our own lives or are shaped by outside forces. And the second is reality and illusion. So the film blurs the line between what's real and what's fabricated, echoing Plato's allegory of the cave.
Sure.
Surveillance and control. So it raises concerns about constant observation and how media and institutions manipulate behavior. And so I think manipulation, so much manipulation. The fourth is authenticity and identity. So, Truman's Journey is a search for genuine experiences and a true sense of self. And I would say that movie, nothing in his life really was genuine. And except for like anytime he reached for something that wasn't wanted, they snatched it away. And so, in a weird way, I feel like that almost trains him to want, what isn't
Sure.
allowed.
Yeah.
And then the last one, again, we talked about the ethics of entertainment. Challenges the morality of exploiting a person's life for mass consumption and entertainment. And I think in the movie it says it was the first time in history that a corporation adopted a baby.
Yeah.
Like, yikes, that's slavery.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do like the philosophical themes. It's also just a really enjoyable movie to watch. Because it does look very manufactured. But of course, if you've never been anywhere else, you wouldn't know. I read that, what was it? Old magazines and like Norman Rockwell paintings were served as inspiration for the look and feel of the movie, and of course, the outfits. Of course, it looked very 1950s.
Yeah, very, like you were saying before, very Sears Roebuck catalog, very,
Yeah.
Norman Rockwellian.
Yeah.
No,
Very sanitized,
yeah,
kind of Disneyland
very
esque.
much. Yeah,
So many people on the like the street cleaners. I've
yeah,
never seen that many people picking up
yeah.
trash.
What's funny too is there's not a lot of trash to pick up.
Yeah, because are these actors throwing cups on the ground? It doesn't make any sense. But it's the point is to bring home that it's so manicured and
Sure.
so controlled. And it would be interesting because if I were a director, if I were Ed Harris, like one complaint argument against reality TV now is that it's fake. It's all scripted. And producers are notorious for basically picking fights between cast members, being like, oh, you should really go talk to so and so about that if that makes you mad. And yet, Ed Harris went out of his way to sanitize Truman's environment. If you notice all the magazines he had to choose from, like, not one talked about world events, it was all like dog fancy, like fashion magazines, but nothing that ever talked about, anything about like what was going on in the world. Another thing that I thought was hilarious, again, trying to manipulate him into not wanting to travel, was all the like he goes to the travel agencies and it's you see a plane being struck by lightning and it says it could be you. And then like reading the newspaper and the main headline is who needs Europe? So I thought it was hilarious, heavy-handed but hilarious.
Yeah, so that is one of my favorite scenes is
Oh,
going to the travel agency, and it's
yes.
like one of the posters you said bad things happen, or there's the picture of like
It could be you.
yeah,
It
the
could happen to
plane
you.
with the lightning going through it. But there's also
Yes.
one where it's like wild animals, like plague,
Right?
like
Yes.
violence, like why bother like I just
Yes. Same
love it
here.
that that those are posters so prominently displayed
At the travel
in a travel
agency.
agency. And then another hidden Easter egg, which I didn't pick up on until I read it, was you know, there had never been need for a travel agency on the Truman Show up until that point. So when the
Mm-hmm.
travel agent comes out, she clearly just came from like hair and makeup, and she's still
Mm-hmm.
wearing the bib for the
Yeah.
makeup. And she's like, while she's talking to him, she removes the bib. Thus
Mm-hmm.
again, it's like layers upon layers of like this being fake. And and it's funny too because like how many times when you're trying to book something and they're like, hey, I'd really like to get there. They're like, it's gonna be a month, and they're like, can I go somewhere else? They're like, nope. And it's
Yep.
like, it's like the least helpful travel agent, and it's just like the sort of like the unintentional comedy, sort of the tongue in cheek, like we're gonna give you a travel agency, but it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
be completely non-functional. We're gonna give you
Yeah.
a
Useless.
bus, but then we're gonna break it. Like we'll give, like it looks like there might be an out, but there isn't. You can
Mm-hmm.
get off the island, but then we're gonna say, there's there's a wildfire. Oh, Meryl says we should stop. Oh, it's a nuclear radiation, and they literally tackle him. But
Yeah.
then
They throw a net over him like he's a wild animal.
in the scene with the creator, he's like, well, if he actually wanted to leave, we definitely would let him leave. It's like, what else does the guy have to do? Grow wings
Yes.
and fly out? Like, it's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I like
Mm-hmm.
anytime they go to the newsstand, I think it's funny because we don't really have newsstands anymore, at least in the traditional sense where everyone's buying magazines. And I love how you mentioned dog fancy. So I'm like, what is dog fancy? Like, is it like like the?
Well, I've seen cat fancy.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm just out of it, but
Well, I remember when you and I were in middle school, we would go to Borders Books a
yeah,
lot, and I would love to go to their magazine racks. And that was the first time I came across Cat Fancy, and I was like,
yeah.
"Who knew this existed?"
I think some of the brick and mortar bookstores are making a comeback. Like I know,
Yes,
like Barnes and Noble and some of these other ones, it's like it's having a little bit of a resurgence. One thing I want to touch on is, one of your themes, your philosophical themes, was manipulation. And I think it's interesting because, on the one hand, it's a reality TV show, but it's also a trap. Like, how do we design? You talked about like the tortoise and the terrarium and how it keeps escaping. How do we design it so it looks nice, but it's a trap? We got to get him afraid of the water.
hmm
Anytime he starts talking about wanting to go to Fiji or New Orleans, Meryl says, "Well, how can we afford that? Like we don't make
hmm
enough money. Like so, even in this fake reality, they can't pay him too much so he can travel. That he's like he has to be a little. He has to sort of be a little bit under their thumb, and
hmm
I think that's a little messed up too. It's sort
Oh,
of
for
like
sure.
like you have the opportunity to sort of create this artificial Shangri-La, uh, but you make it a trap so he's still stressed out enough,
Yes.
where he won't want to leave. Um, I just think it's messed up. In in addition to like the travel agent scene, which is a riot, I love when he's unraveling it and Meryl's still doing the product placement. She does the cocoa one,
Yes.
and he says, "Who are you talking?" He's like looking over his shoulder. He's
Yes.
like he's gotten to the point where like this is so weird. Like I've been
hmm
living in this fake reality my whole life, but even I know what you're doing doesn't make sense. Like that's
hmm
when I really thought like, oh, it's it's up now. Like he's figured it out.
Well, thinking about other traps, and he kind of caught on to it. He asked her very pointedly, "Why do you want to have a baby with me?" And the reason was to trap him.
Yeah.
Another reason to, one, be attached to that house, attached to like another role that he has to fulfill, obligations, financial, obviously familial. And I read that it wasn't included in the script, but the point, Ed Harris, the creator, wanted to have like the next generation lined up so they could have
Oh.
like a whole concurrent channel where they follow the child, which is
Okay.
even creepier.
Sure.
But it's obvious, she's talking about Fiji, or he's talking about Fiji, and she's like, "But what about a baby? Wouldn't a baby be better?" But again,
Yeah.
talk about creepy and unethical. Like, one, you don't love him, and you're having a baby with him. But
It, and it wasn't just Meryl; it was also his mother. So like there
yes,
were multiple people pressuring him on that side.
yes,
And I mentioned before, like there's a big difference in terms of so there's two things I want to explore. One is, he's not an active participant here. He doesn't know what's going on. It's more like a zoo. It's more
yes,
like a zoo in the sense that, like, okay, what if you had a human that was being observed like animals in the zoo? What would that look like?
mm-hmm,
And here it's actually a little bit worse because at least with animals in the zoo, they know the humans are there. They can see them. Like they know it's a fake habitat. Here, he
yeah,
has no idea it's a fake habitat. He's lived entirely in the fake habitat. He has no
mm-hmm,
idea that his other animals aren't actually there with him. He's the only one in the zoo.
yeah,
So I think that's a little bit crazy. And the other thing too is like with most reality TV shows, there's a little bit of who's manipulating who. Is it like, are
mm-hmm,
these reality TV stars manipulating them for fame and fortune, or is it the show that's manipulating them to do things that might be embarrassing or things they wouldn't otherwise do, or exploitation of their personal lives? And it's
mm-hmm.
usually it's like, oh well, it's there's arguments both ways. Here, the exploitation is almost all one way. It's like a
Absolutely.
hundred
It's because he
percent
doesn't know. He's not in on it.
now,
So,
100%.
mm-hmm,
But I
mm-hmm,
think that's That's interesting. And then one, one last sort of like funny scene, since we touched on the product placement, we touched on the news, the travel agency. I think it's funny when the creators talking about how people tried to break into the show before. There's like the guy who hopped out of the gifts. There's the person who
Mm-hmm.
comes in the parachutes,
Yes.
and
Yes.
part of it is like being on TV used to be like a big thing. Here's your 5 minutes or 15 minutes of fame or whatever. And people sought that out. I don't it's kind of so ubiquitous now. I don't know if it's really sought out as much. Even at
Mm-hmm.
the end when Ed Harris is like, say something, you're on television, everyone's watching. Like
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, I don't think anyone would really care. Like there's no
Nope.
obligation to perform just because in some ways it's so diffuse. There's so many channels where everyone's saying everything, and you kind of think you want people to say less. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's interesting. I think that's interesting.
Thinking about manipulation or like the mom. Okay, so he met Sylvia in high school, right? And obviously was interested in her. And again, he's looking at her from across the way. She's sitting at the tree and they're making lovey eyes at each other. And then in that very moment, Merle falls on him, which I thought was really interesting. And
Oh,
so
my
basically,
ankle, my ankle.
yeah, oh, so sorry. I'm such a klutz. But then, he has that one night with Sylvia where they go to the beach and, they have just a few moments together and she kind of spills the beans to him. And then the people in the bar are talking about, she's like, why didn't he look for her? Why didn't he go after her? And they said right after the mom got
Mom got
sick,
sick. Yeah.
which is so much like disgust, like you said, the fake death of the father. And then the mom's like, I never blamed that on you or blamed you for that, which is really gross if you think about it. And then okay, so he just meets this girl and she gets wrenched away, so mom has a fake cancer scare, really unethical. And then they say he married Merle on the rebound. I read on some trivia that originally the writer wanted Truman to be like around 18 to 20, and that's when he's having this crisis.
Sure.
But when it was written, they really had Jim Carrey in mind, and of course, at the time, Jim Carrey was in his 30s, and so they made it more of a midlife crisis versus a disgruntled youth. But it's like, okay, so you sat like for 12 years. That's a long time to have these thoughts on the back burner and to have like your little treasure chest in the basement where you put together, this collage of your
Yeah.
mom's
That's
love.
what
So,
what I was gonna go next. I'm glad you went there first. Is like what are the signs that this is an unhealthy environment, at least mentally and emotionally and spiritually? And that's like there's clear signs of trauma. One of those signs is like like the all the magazine clippings kind of trying to like
because it looks like a
mosaic,
kidnapper
yeah,
letter.
mosaic the face together. Definitely has like stalker vibes, and like it's just, because he hasn't let go, and it's like he doesn't, he can't talk to his mom about it. He can't talk to Meryl about it. He intuitively knows that he can't talk to anyone about it. If he
Well,
does,
anytime he says anything that is undesirable, he gets shut
throttled.
down. He gets
Yeah.
shut down.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
gets completely throttled, so he knows he has to hide this. And
Mm-hmm.
and then the other thing, which is, like he's smelling a sweater. He's smelling a sweater from over 10 years ago from someone he basically only knew for about a day. Which
Mm-hmm.
again, like the movie portrays as, oh, that's sweet. But like I think nowadays would be like, well, there's a lot of trauma there. Like this is more like PTSD. It's definitely it's definitely problematic. And you brought up the interesting point about like the changing ages, but I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to sort of veer slightly and sort of be like casting. How many other people could even play the Truman character? Because on the
Mm-hmm.
one hand, it's kind of a serious role in the sense that this is definitely an artistic film, has a lot of complicated, complex issues. But who has the range? Who has the range to be sort of silly but also serious, but who also could be plausibly manipulated.
Mm.
Because I think,
He can play gullible. He can play like
right?
innocent, gullible,
Because I think there needs
1950s.
like I
Yeah.
don't think you can have an actor who's really cynical, because I
Mhm.
just don't think it's gonna work, uh
Mhm.
but like, so like you say, like they need the notes they need to hit are sort of light and happy note, because again, like at the beginning when he's drawing like the soap on the mirrors, the astronaut and like the explorer, he cuts some of the serious issues with some levity. And there's a lot of actors who can handle the serious stuff who might not be able to handle the levity. But then that third point is, but who's also believably gullible,
Yeah.
who, you know, and even like when he's like, hey, I think I've seen some weird stuff. And Marlon's like, no, you're crazy, man. Like that's a conspiracy theory. Like, he still keeps talking to him. There's a lot of people that would kind of shut down, that would be more removed or withdrawn. So I don't, I haven't made a list of which actors could play him, but I think it's a short list.
I read in trivia that they considered Robin Williams for it. So another comedian. One thing I really like. This is just like a weird thing that I love when comedians do dramas or play the
Sure.
straight man, because again, they're really good at playing soulful, generally soulful
Sure.
characters. And so, actually, I have this as one of my trivia. Let me find it. I thought it was hilarious when Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert reviewed the film on Siskel and Ebert. They not only gave the film 2 thumbs up, but they gave an on-air apology to Jim Carrey for saying that he would never have a career when they panned Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
You know what? I like that because you never see that. You never see
Mm-hmm.
the apology. You never see,
Yeah.
like, you often see it the other way around. You often see it
Mm-hmm.
where like the actor or the wronged person says, "You never believed in me. You said this." But rarely do you see the critic who took a
Mm-hmm.
really aggressive stance, sort of admit
Mm-hmm.
like, "Hey, I was wrong. They really pulled it off." And not only that, like I think his career probably continued to get better. Like
Yes.
there's a lot of he's done a lot. It's not all Ace Ventura. It's not all Dumb and Dumber. It's like
Mm-hmm.
Eternal Sunshine of
Eternal
this.
Sunshine of the
Yeah,
Spotless
yeah,
Mind. Such a
there's
good movie.
yeah, there's a lot of, again, there's and even then there's like weird ones which you almost don't have to, you know, almost have a difficult time categorizing it, like the Andy Kaufman, like the Man in the Moon. Like
Mhm.
again, like there aren't that many actors or actresses that could pull off these roles because they're very unique individuals.
Totally agree. It's funny that Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind came up. So I found a list of movies that were kind of just in the same vortex of this movie, reality questioning slash social commentary focused movies. So we have The Matrix,
Sure.
1999.
Yeah. Keanu
Uh,
Reeves.
I've never seen this movie. Did you see Dark City,
I don't
1998?
think so.
Okay. Inception,
Okay.
2010.
That's a good
Okay.
one.
So Media and Surveillance, Pleasantville, 1998.
Sure.
Ed TV, which came out like a year later, very similar. And then existential and identity crisis stories. So Her in 2020 or
Right.
2013.
Joaquin Phoenix, right?
Yep. And then Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, 2004. And I actually saw this movie in the theater. It was an independent movie, but it was on a list, so I decided to see it. I don't know if you have. It's called Anomalisa.
I've never
And
heard of it.
so interesting. So it's not claymation, but it's not human beings. But this, I suggest you watch it. It's a man perceives everyone around him as the same. Everyone has the exact same voice, and he finally meets a woman who has a different voice.
All right.
And so he falls in love with her,
Right.
and so they have like this passionate, like not affair because I don't think he's married or anything, but then suddenly he wakes up like a few days later and her voice sounds like everybody else, and
Oh
he's so
no.
sad because she was different.
Right.
And so anyway, it was kind of a trippy movie, but I love so many of those movies, and there are some which I'm like I have not seen that. Maybe I would like
Right.
it.
Add it to
So
your list.
yeah, yeah. Oh, speaking of lists, and I'll let you get back. So the director is Peter Weir.
Yep.
There are only a few of the movies on his list in his like IMDb credits that I had actually heard of. Two that I've seen: Dead Poet Society,
Right.
such a good
Robin
movie.
Williams.
Uh huh. And then The Witness. Did you ever see Witness?
No,
Harrison Ford. He helps like an Amish boy.
I
Really
don't think
good.
so.
Pretty sure that's it. And then there's this other one which I have read about. I've seen quoted or mentioned in other movies, and I have never seen it. It has Jeff Bridges in it, and it came out right around this movie, I think, or maybe the 80s. I don't know. It's called Fearless.
Okay.
So it's about, and it's on my list just to watch in general, but it's about a man who survives a plane crash, and his whole life is changed after that because he survived something he didn't think he would, get out of, and so he like completely rearranges his whole life, and it kind of follows that. But it very highly rated, and also Jeff Bridges is a pretty great character, so or a pretty great actor. So that is on my list. That is on my list.
That's good. I like that list.
Yeah. So, let's see. Any other things you want to share?
I have like three big ones in terms of like where do we go from here?
Okay.
Do you want me to do that?
Yeah.
All right. The first one is, hope you like this. Why doesn't anyone ever talk about a sequel? Right?
Yes.
We're what? At like Fast and Furious 45, Fast and Furious 92, but there's not Truman Show, the sequel, because there's so many questions.
Unanswered
And it's
question.
fascinating. I mean, the really obvious ones are like, do he and Sylvia end up together? But I think the more interesting ones are, one, does he ever trust anyone again? You know,
Mm-hmm.
every important relationship in his life has been a lie. His mother, his father, his best friends, his wife, like everyone. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
has been a fabrication. How can you ever trust again?
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, where do you live? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he obviously they talk over and over in the movie about Fiji, 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 which is interesting for two things. One, he picks Fiji because that's where he thinks Sylvia's family has moved to, so he's trying to find her. But he also says like no, there are islands in Fiji that no one's ever. He's a worldwide phenomenon. Where do you go where
He has no
literally
privacy.
where
No
everyone knows
privacy.
you and you know no one? You
And
know,
everyone, not only everyone knows you, but they feel they have a relationship
right,
with you.
right,
And he said, in an interview, he said that he actually understood how to play this character because he was such a big
yeah,
movie star. Because as a big movie star, you don't really have privacy. And if you just try to go to a restaurant or a store, people come up and try to talk to you like they know you. And like, so like you said, he would hate that as in the real world, because that would be really obnoxious. He would almost feel more invaded
right.
in the real world than on the Truman Show, which is ironic.
What and what's crazy is like in most with most famous people, authors or rock stars or movie stars, usually there's like a demographic that doesn't know anything about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for famous sports people, there's a ton of people who don't watch sports that don't know. So there, I feel like there's like safe spaces for like um, you know, certainly Hollywood. Like okay, well, fine, you're rich and famous, you're an actor or an actress, you moved to Hollywood. Well, there's a lot of like it's sort of a community, but like even if he moved to Hollywood, they all the other actors like they've seen him sleep. Every single
Mm-hmm.
person, like there's a like you said, there's a level of people knowing you, or a level of intimacy that's so intense.
Violation.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
so intense where I don't know. Like I think he would have to like move somewhere extremely remote.
Grow a
Um,
big beard. Look like what's his face? What's his face? Not Jay Leno, the other guy. I can't. Letterman. Have you seen what Letterman looks like? He looks like
No,
Santa Claus.
no.
He looks like Santa Claus. Big beard, big
Yeah.
bushy hair. Looks nothing like the David Letterman of yore.
What's weird about that, what you just said about Letterman, is, you know, I think he lives in Indiana now, and he
Hmm.
basically, I read some blurb, and I apologize if I'm mischaracterizing it, but he basically sounded like, he never liked Hollywood, he never liked the shtick, he just did it, for the job, and like this is the real him. The real him is, Indiana Santa Claus, David Letterman, and it's just weird because again, you think because you watch someone for however many years on television, you think you know who they are, but
Yeah.
he's faking it. He's faking
Yeah.
it the whole time. You have no idea who he
Yeah.
actually is.
Yeah. And Johnny Carson was famously kind of a hermit too. He wanted nothing to do with Hollywood, and after his show ended, he just like hung out with his wife. He had no interest in doing any of that. It was just very secluded.
Yeah.
So, I remember reading. So a few months ago, I was in a desperate place, didn't have anything to watch. I broke down and watched a Netflix Lindsay Lohan movie. Let's have a moment there. But
Sure.
I remember thinking, good for her. Again, this was a very lame movie, like a 2 out of 5. But I wanted something I could
What
kind
was
of
it?
have.
What was it? What was the movie about?
Gosh,
Was it a
I think I
Christmas
watched.
movie?
Yes. Have you seen it?
So I watched that movie right around
Yes.
Christmas time
We
because
both
it's
watched
like
it.
the holiday season. You're wrapping
Yes.
gifts or whatever.
Yes.
And the funny thing is, I didn't recognize her. Like I got halfway through the film,
What?
and I was like she turned or she said
You
something,
didn't recognize?
and I
She's
no,
not
I
bad.
didn't recognize her because
She's
like
not
I
that
just
bad.
because and to be fair, it wasn't because she doesn't look like herself. I didn't recognize her because I hadn't seen her in any movies in a while. So it's sort of
Yes.
like
Yes.
if you're sort of like not looking in it, like I didn't think it was a different actress. I hadn't asked myself
You didn't
who's the
connect the dots.
actress playing main character A. I just
You
hadn't
know,
thought about it, and then I was like, oh my goodness, like that's Lindsay Lohan.
yes, and it's funny. I actually watched it because I knew it was her, and I thought, I haven't heard from her in a minute, and I
Sure.
I just want to see what she's up to. Even though, of course, this is a fictional
Yeah.
movie, and I remember thinking, one, what's with all these actresses who are like sub 30 with the crazy like
Sure.
facelifts? Like, I guess that's just par for the course right now.
Yeah.
But I was thinking again, good for her because it could have turned out very bad for her. Like she was going down the wrong path with drug abuse and whatnot, and she kind of turned it around and like really chilled out. And I looked it up, and this is where I was going. She moved. I can't remember the Middle Eastern country. It might be Bahrain. I
Mm.
can't remember where. Married a Christian guy there. He's like he's from one of like the 15 big Christian families in that entire country because not a lot of Christians. But she moved there before she even met them or met him because paparazzi is illegal in that country. And I'm like, wow, one, if you want your money to go far, go there. And two, she can live in like this ritzy like condo and live really well. And she said she went there because she was being hounded by paparazzi so intensely that it was just really traumatic for her, and she just kind of wanted to have a semi-normal life. And so like a few years ago, she signed a multi-movie deal with Netflix where she would just kind of fly in
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the
yeah.
US, film it, and then go back home. And she has a baby now.
I know. I
And I
looked
was
that up
thinking, like,
too.
it's like the David Letterman thing. Like, she actually, turned her nose up at Hollywood and left. And so many young starlets and stars go down the wrong path and die or whatnot. And so I was like, huh, that actually makes me like this like superficial movie a
Yeah.
little bit more because like she did it her way. And you know what? If I were like Truman or Lindsay Lohan where I got hounded by paparazzi, I might move to that country too. So I could have like a modicum of
Sure.
freedom. And it's someone like Bruce Willis, like obviously he has all his um,
Cognitive.
dementia issues now. But I remember reading like he moved out of Hollywood in like the late 90s because he wanted to live in a really small town. Because when you live in a small town, everyone gets to know you. And so they're not really, it's not interesting to see you like pull up at the gas station anymore. Because like,
Do you know
oh,
where he
there's,
moved?
no, do you know where?
Think, and it's tough because a lot of these celebrities have
Multiple.
multiple houses, but I think they lived in Idaho, in
That's
like one of like the ski areas. And the only reason I know that is one of my roommates in college. He went to school with Bruce Willis's kids, and he's like,
oh.
yeah, they live there, and like they're just like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Normal people.
yeah.
Yeah. And so again, I think one, I would never, if I were ever in Hollywood, I would want to be like a character actor. I used to joke this was like in the 90s or 2000s, like Everyone Loves Raymond, which I never watched, but like I would be like the mom on that show. I want to have the paycheck, but no one cares anything about my life. That's what
Yeah.
I, or like a voice actor on The Simpsons. That's what I want.
My analogy of that is like if I were ever playing like in the NFL, my dream job would either be backup quarterback holding the clipboard for an extremely healthy quarterback, like a guy that never gets hurt, never misses a
No
game. Cal
CTE.
Ripken. I just want the headset and the clipboard, and if I can't do that,
Yes.
I'd rather be the kicker. Because
Yeah.
it's like I just kind of want to mind my maybe the punter, because I feel like if the kicker
Mhm.
misses like the game-winning shot, they still take the heat. But like
Yeah.
no one ever yells at the punter because he didn't pin
Mm-mm.
someone in the within the
Yeah.
five.
Who
So
wants that pressure,
yeah,
that supervision? Yeah, I want the pay like a decent paycheck, but
sure.
none of the fuss.
With
None of the fuss.
On the Lindsay Lohan stuff, I was so embarrassed I didn't recognize her. I did a quick screen grab and I sent it to some of my buddies. I'm like, no
Who's this?
cheating. Who is this? And they're all like, Lindsay Lohan. Like, like, did you not
I'm shocked
recognize it?
you
Like,
didn't
and yeah,
know.
I felt like so bad. I felt so silly and so stupid that I didn't recognize her immediately. And again, like, maybe it's because I wasn't trying to put a name to the face. I was just like, oh, it's a Christmas movie. They're exchanging gifts. There's drama. There's
Yeah.
eggnog, whatever. It's like I wasn't thinking about it, but yeah, I just remember like, ugh, I should have known that.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's funny. All right, we are at about a little over an hour. Oh, this is another trivia thing that I want to read. So, according to a 2008 New York Times article, psychologists in Britain and the US reported a number of people experiencing Truman syndrome or the Truman Show delusion, which is the belief that they are the unwitting star of their own reality TV show. Reportedly, many afflicted specifically mentioned the film in therapy. And more recently, on September 16th, 2013, the detailed account of one Ohio student who suffered from years of this condition was documented in the New Yorker magazine article titled The Unreality Star. And apparently, I don't know if this was the same guy, but literally climbed to the top of the Statue of Liberty, somehow assuming that his high school girlfriend would be there waiting for him. So, a little dicey, but it is interesting now that it's really seeped into the consciousness of everybody. And I guess it's just reality TV. If you watch it enough, you feel like it's really possible.
Yeah, I guess part of the problem is, you know, let me take a position you might not expect.
Okay.
They're not wrong. They're
Mm-hmm.
not wrong in the sense that, how many people have an Apple Watch or a Fitbit. You go to the
Mm-hmm.
grocery store and like they scan your rewards cards. They track everything you're
Your
spending.
credit card.
Yeah, they take your credit card. The credit card knows everything you're spending. Every single place you go, whether it's the grocery store, the bank, your car, like there's
Mm-hmm.
video cameras everywhere. How many
Yes.
video cameras on the average car now? Like forward, backward, side mirror. Like video is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you are in a movie. It's just a really boring movie of data capture. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you're a star, but you're a star of sort of like, a consumerist culture where the corporations, not that there's anything wrong with that, but like they want your data. They want to know how you're spending your time. They want to know how many lattes you have every day. And like that's, so we're all, I would say, like, they're not wrong. We're all kind of the star. It's just not entertaining.
Yeah.
None
Yeah.
of us have many fans. It's a lot of, or rather maybe we do, but like they're corporate fans. They all want to know our data. They're
But
all,
more to exploit
yeah,
us
and they
and
want to know
manipulate
what
us.
buckets we fall in. Like I always find it funny, when like you hear sort of, and you know more about this than I do, but like when they're like, oh, you fall into this, demo for coffee purchases. You fall into this demo
Yes.
for car purchases, and like,
Personas. They're called personas.
oh, okay. Well, you take it away. But like, I find that stuff fascinating because I always think like I'm unique. I'm a snowflake. And like
You
when
are
I go
not.
to restaurants or I go to Jimmy John's, I don't like typing in my rewards card because I want to make it just fractionally more difficult for them to track which sandwiches I like that week.
Oh, I feel the same way. So my first ever market research job, I remember this article coming out that really showed how dangerous, not dangerous, but like just what could be accomplished with market research data. And I don't know if I've talked to you about this, but it was a story about Target. And so Target is so good at
Is
tracking
this
your
was like the
purchases.
hand load, like the unscented? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So this story is, it turns out that this young woman had been purchasing things like cotton balls, certain types of vitamins, uh, again, unscented hand lotion, et cetera, et cetera. And it turns out she was about 16 or 17 years old. And they started sending her customized advertisements for, baby bottles and diapers and buggies. And the dad was like, where did they
Upset.
get off sending this to my teen daughter? How dare they, assuming she has a child? And it turns out she actually was pregnant.
Sure.
And so the big takeaway was Target knew before the other people living in the house with her. And so that was a big yikes moment of maybe we should not show that we know so much about you. Like we have to throw in like a lawnmower in there, or some wind, just spice it up a little bit so that it's not too on the nose.
Sure.
I remember back in the day, American Express was like at the forefront of this. Like they have some crazy like PhD data crunchers, and like now I can't even imagine what they're doing because this was well over a decade ago. But yeah, there's no privacy. If they look at your credit card statements, they can tell a lot about what's going on in your life.
I I feel like in some ways we've taken a step back though, in the sense that like you were talking about Target being like at the front of it, and they're like, we know what you want even before you do. We know you're pregnant before your family does. I mean, all I feel like I get nowadays are like scam text messages from like tollway companies, which I know are scams.
All the
And I'm
time.
like,
All
this
the
isn't
time.
like, this is like, we've gone from like customized advertisements to just customized scams. Like there's,
Mhm.
we've passed the hill and we're on the descent. Like this
Yes.
is just purely, it's just purely awful.
Well, AI scares me so much. I read that, like, and this is one reason why my child's face has never been on the internet.
Sure.
Is I read that they create simulations of your child's voice calling you, saying like, "I've been kidnapped. I need you to like send money."
Sure.
And there have been people who have been fooled. And so like talk about customization, like customized worst nightmare.
Wow.
But and all the scams on the internet. Like I think you were telling me, we're not going to go into that, but about how a friend of a friend of a friend was like not catfished, but like pretended to be in love with him on the internet and got all of his money.
No.
So, yeah, it's too bad. All right. Any other? I think I got through all of mine. Let me see. Dennis Hopper was originally cast as the director, Christoph, but walked off set after his first day. Hopper went on to a supporting role on EdTV, which has striking similarities. So maybe he regretted the
For
fact that
sure.
I bet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's buyer's remorse.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you mentioned why wasn't there a sequel? Well, I read that they had to wait a year because of Jim Carrey's super packed schedule even to make this movie. So clearly he was at like the peak of his,
Sure.
his young adulthood. So he was commanding 20 million per flick, though he accepted I think like 8 million less because he wanted to do a drama for this. So it was probably hard to get him to sign on to do a sequel. And also the late 90s, early 2000s, people still
Saturated.
went to the theaters. It wasn't like sequel city like it is
Yeah.
now, which is just really depressing. But I mean, I would watch that
I would
sequel
too.
now.
I
Let's
definitely
read.
would.
The funny thing is, I just kept thinking like everything I see here is a lawsuit. So many lawsuits, like because one he's owed how many lost wages because he made $1 billion brand, all those plates, all of that. Of course, he's going to have a book deal. He'd probably end up, if because what other skills does he have? He could maybe sell life insurance, but no, he could probably have his
Sure.
own talk show because people would be desperate to see him and still track some part of his life. And so he could thus have autonomy, but then be a host of a show. So yes, I think it would be fun as a thought experiment just to explore what does the aftermath look like. And he'd have a travel show probably, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
That would be the best thing. Like if it's just like, hey, we're gonna go to, we're gonna go to Fiji, then we're gonna go to this place, then we're gonna go to that place, and we're gonna talk about like that would actually probably be the best possible outcome.
Yeah, yeah. But like you said, so many lawsuits. So many lawsuits. And then like lots of therapy with the fake mom. Maybe he has to have some confrontation with Laura Linney, Merle. But I do love how he's like, you don't even like me. You hate me. My favorite thing was when he was looking through that photo album, like turning points in the movie. And he looks at that wedding picture. And I would say that's a big turning. And she had her fingers crossed. And he knew. He knew exactly what that meant. Like, I'm marrying you, but I don't mean it. I don't love you. So,
Yeah. And what's funny is the next day when he said,
my fingers will be crossed.
yeah, yeah, like cross your fingers.
Yeah.
And she like looked at him and she knew he knew. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when she knew she like, she had to get out, and then they started
Mm-hmm.
making the arrangements to move her out. And I thought it was kind of creepy too how quickly they like already
Had a new
had a
love interest?
replacement. They're like, I mean, he's married, like, but they're like, oh, we're just gonna write her out of the script. We're gonna write this new person in. It's gonna be a coworker, and it's like, what do you
But
know?
isn't that how most TV shows work? Like,
Sure.
there's no years of coping with, just finding yourself and being single. That's not how TV
There's
works. They write in the new person
there's
immediately.
and there's a lot of like soap opera angles when they're like,
Mm.
how do we explain the dad's absence? He's like,
Amnesia?
amnesia. It's like there's like more amnesia on TV shows, like way
Ever.
more than real life.
Yeah, I remember when I was in one of my counseling psychology classes, and they're like, that whole stuff, like getting conked on the head, you have amnesia, conked on the head, again, total fabrication. Like, that is just soap operas and TV shows. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, big miseducation to the public. So.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Let's see. Any other thoughts, Broseph? Oh, critics score 95%
Pretty
on Rotten
good.
Tomatoes and 89% audience score.
Yeah.
So
Still,
good.
still really strong. I guess the last Easter egg is sort of his tagline. In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, good night. That's sort of a hidden Easter egg in the sense that's hiding in plain sight because, it's almost like a tip of the hat that he knows he's the star of the show. That
Yeah.
he's giving a performance. And if he doesn't see you, he'll see you again soon because they're always watching.
Mhm.
Which again, like, I never thought of it that way, but I was like, oh, that's kind of deep, or maybe too deep. Like I noodled on that for a little bit.